Hello and welcome to The Drug Trip, and thank you for clicking on this video. The purpose of this channel will be to share accounts and experiences with various substances so that the viewers can gain an insight as to what those experiences are like. I also hope that these experiences will reduce self-harm and substance abuse, as I do not endorse, condone or encourage the abuse of any illicit substance, drug or medication. I will credit the authors in the description below, and I also upload new trip reports on Sunday and Wednesday every week, so if you do happen to enjoy the content, please consider subscribing. I'll begin my account of the cannabis-induced experience I had last night after a brief introduction and a slab of background information about myself. I'm an 18-year-old college student majoring in liberal arts. I'm a very analytical person by nature, and I am very interested in philosophy. I have been smoking marijuana daily for around 6 months, 2 to 3 dime bags daily. Typically after smoking cannabis, I become intensely philosophical. I've come to many realizations, both good and bad, about reality and existence itself. I met up with 3 of my close friends after class and bought a dime bag of a friend's neighbour. We smoked their weed before and generally agreed that this dealer had decent marijuana. The last time I smoked the marijuana we scored from this dealer, I felt relaxed and experienced a normal high. Last night, I went on an unexpected and horrifying trip to the base of reality and the core of truth. Around 9 PM, L rolls the blunt and we go into his backyard to smoke. I take around 5 hits. Shortly after we smoke, I feel my body tingle and my hands and feet go numb. My train of thought becomes disorganised, and I'm unsure exactly what is wrong with my thought process as of yet. I feel like my upper body, my face, shoulders and torso are swaying back and forth, left and right. I ask my friends if I'm moving and they tell me I'm not. 9:10 PM. I'm starting to freak out because the feeling of swaying back and forth still hasn't subsided. My friends seem completely serious when they insist that I'm standing still. It seems that I am thinking way too fast. My thoughts are out of pace with time. They're moving at lightning speed, and I am processing thousands of complex thoughts in just a couple of seconds. This has the effect of making everything around me, that is, everything around my thoughts, seem incredibly slow. Time is dragging. The sound of a car driving by lingers and is still audible even when the car is out of sight. 9:20 PM. I begin to have memory lapses. I begin moving my head, neck and arms over and over again in the same motions until I catch myself and realise what I'm doing. I'm zoning out into a deep, bottomless train of thought. I want to stop thinking, and I do manage to clear my head for a couple of seconds at a time. However, the thoughts race back again at lightning speed. I was thinking in a cycle about going crazy, reassuring myself that nobody goes crazy from smoking weed, completely forgetting what was going on, and then remembering what was going on and preparing myself for this thought loop over and over again like a cycle. Only each time I got to the next part of the cycle, it felt like the first time. I began to fear permanent brain damage. I remember that during the first part of this cycle, or thought loop, that my mind was stuck in, I did not realise what was wrong with my thoughts, which actually was the reason that I started to panic. During the middle of the thought loop, I would realise that I was either thinking way too fast or way too slow, which caused me to panic further. I wasn't able to figure out which was true, and this frightened me even more and more. I would then realise that the solution to my problem would be to stop worrying about the fact that I was thinking either too fast or too slow, and only to zone off into my thoughts inexplicably and uncontrollably, and enter this thought loop all over again. My friends and I leave the backyard and begin walking around the streets. 9:20. I'm getting the social signals, like body language, that my friends are sending me wrong. I think I'm misinterpreting their messages. When they laugh and shake their head at my confused state, I mistake this for malicious, underhanded mocking. In retrospect, they were not laughing maliciously, but they were probably trying to calm me down by not freaking out. I react to what I perceive this as a malicious attack by sending my own social signals, like giving dirty looks and sighing heavily. I then try to interpret the reactions of my friends, and it seems to me that they are responding with more negative and more malicious social signals. In reality, I'm sure none of them were even thinking about me or their body language, as they were all enjoying their own highs. I continue to try and send them what I perceive to be sly, malicious social signals and some negative retaliation for their perceived mockery. I get very caught up in their every movement and assume that it has some deep socialist signal attached to it. This continues throughout the ordeal. 9:25. As my friends and I are still walking, I zone off into thought, which seems to be part of the loop cycle I mentioned earlier. I suddenly wonder where social signals come from. Where do they come from? Where do the things that make these thoughts come from? What is the base of the reality? What was the first prototype of a thought, or an atom, a loaf of bread, or a human being? Why are things in reality the way that they are? I determine that I cannot prove my own existence, because if one takes reality as a whole, everything it consists of, people, time, places, feelings, objects, etc., and puts it on a silver plate, there is nothing to compare reality and everything it consists of. So for example, we do not know of another reality to compare time to. So if I held up a watch that claims it's 9:25 PM and beckoned the other reality to confirm that the time on my watch was accurate, and it was indeed 9:25 PM, I would get no response. I'm worried because I believe that I have entered another dimension of thought, and once you cross the line into this dimension, there is no denying what you have discovered. 9:30. I'm terrified by my new revelation about not being able to prove reality really exists. I decide to head home. I believe I'm walking the right way, and then I suddenly realise that I have walked 2 blocks in the wrong direction. At this point, I feel exhausted, so I called a friend from my cell phone and asked her to come pick me up. I babbled something to her about smoking weed and walking home the wrong way. I asked her to pick me up outside a store that I was near to. 9:45. My friend arrives and must have been pretty freaked out because she asked me if I wanted to go to hospital. I was still swaying and shaking and talking about my new revelation about reality. I asked her to take me to hospital. However, she was afraid to take me there because of the consequences she thought I could face, including losing my college scholarship. For some reason, because of the social signals I felt she was sending me, I didn't trust her. I thought that she was lying to me, and in fact was planning to take me to hospital, and that I would probably live there for the rest of my life. She was asking me questions like, "What day is it?" and "Who is the president?" Suddenly, all of which I could answer. When she asked me these questions, I suspected that she was then assessing my mental state and or the urgency of taking me to hospital. Then I looked out of the car window and saw that we were circling around the hospital, driving around the block over and over again, which we actually weren't. Suddenly, we arrived at her house on the other side of town. I now conclude that I was experiencing some kind of paranoid delusion when I thought that we were actually driving around the hospital, even though we weren't. 9:55. We get to my friend's house and I tell her that if I am not better in the morning, to please not let me continue to live that way. She was terrified, but she was trying not to show it because she didn't want me to freak out completely. At this point, I sat up in her bed for hours and just experienced the thought loop because I knew that I was unable to control it. I realised after a while that it might help to count from 1 to 10 and try to keep track of time because I was thinking far too quickly. This seemed to help, but then I would realise that I was zoning off again not longer after reaching number 10. When my thoughts did begin to slow down, I felt an overwhelming sense of normalcy. My thoughts were in sync with time for brief periods, and I could feel this. I finally fell asleep around 2 AM. After this experience, I had panic attacks nearly every day for several weeks, which sometimes would begin immediately when I woke up in the morning. I also had experiences of disassociation from my environment for nearly 1 month after the initial ordeal. I would simply feel as if I was not real for hours or even a whole day. This happened when I was sitting on the bus. I looked around and up at the ceiling of the bus and felt as though I was just not there, and that I didn't really exist in this environment alongside with all these people. The same thing would happen in class, at my friend's house, etc. My 3 friends, who all hit off the same blunt as I did unanimously, reported feeling normal highs. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed listening to this experience. If you did, please consider liking the video and subscribing. If you would like me to upload a particular drug experience, please let me know in the comments below. Above all, please be safe, be responsible, and be well.